right up front, let me say that I'm recommending this movie, The Social Dilemma, to anybody and everybody that has a social media account, a smartphone, an email address, or even if you're just someone who uses search engines. What the creators of this film have masterfully done is explain what we've known all along. And because of our addiction or our obsession or whatever you want to call it, we have managed to ignore or disregard or completely throw caution to the wind, and we've somehow managed to miss the warning signs of the trouble that lies ahead. This movie uses insiders and leaders from within the social media industry to explain the goals and the tactics employed to enslave and exploit the web surfing public. I've always been told it's not what you know, but it's who you know. This movie takes it one step further by proving that it's what you know about who you know that pays the biggest dividends. And believe me, they know a lot about us. In today's passage, Matthew 16, 1 through 6, we find some Pharisees and some Sadducees who don't realize who they're talking to. They fail to realize that Jesus is someone who has already got the inside track. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was there from the very beginning. He knows them, I'm talking about the Sadducees and the Pharisees, better than they know themselves. Now they're out to discredit him, or at a minimum, they're at least out to trip him up. Verse 1 reads, "The Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus and tested him by asking him to show them a sign from heaven." This group of religious leaders was feeling threatened by the mere presence of Jesus, and they were being guided by their own lust for power. Now, this may have been a bit toward obsession on their part for two interesting reasons. First, Pharisees and Sadducees were very rarely on the same side of an argument. Sadducees were the social elite, and the Pharisees were the middle class. Both groups had opposing views on religious matters. They even had different views about resurrection after death. There had to be an obsession if they were willing to put aside their differences to work together to attack Jesus. Are you obsessed today? Has social media got you to the point where you feel like you just can't live without it? Are you willing to compromise for a little satisfaction? Do you like to chimp? For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a term that came about in the early days of digital cameras. It's the act of immediately looking at the camera viewfinder every time you snap a picture. Chimping. You take a picture, click, and then you look at it, you go, ooh, ooh, ooh. Chimp. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm trying to apply that concept to compulsively checking your likes on anything you post. That's obsession. The other reason we might think this mob was obsessed is they are a part of a group that seems to be stalking Jesus and asking the same question. In this biblical example, we see a group of Sadducees and Pharisees who had the exact same question from an earlier point. Here we are in chapter 16, when that same question was posed in chapter 12 by a similar group. The Bible doesn't say that they were exactly the same people, but they might as well have been because they got the same answer. What was their question? Their question was, show us a sign from heaven. Now I'm going to read into that and say, show us a sign from heaven, because if you don't, we're going to assume that restoring the sight to the blind thing, and that healing the leprosy, and that healing people who were paralyzed, and correcting blood disorders, and casting out demons, and feeding multitudes, and raising the dead, well, we're just going to consider that was all fake news, right? Verse 2. He replied, when evening comes, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red, and in the morning, today will be stormy, for the sky is red and overcast. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it, except the sign of Jonah. Jesus then left them and went away. Now, Jesus, his reply was pretty much a backhanded compliment. He says that they've gotten pretty good at predicting the weather by looking at some things, some simple clues and some basic patterns. When it comes to important stuff, are you clueless? You know, we're all so talented. We're so gifted. We can look at our Facebook and Twitter. We can look at somebody else's feed, and we can clearly tell what's going on. But these are just manipulations of reality. But when we take a look at how we're living, what do we see? He repeated his answer earlier. The only sign they were going to get was the sign of Jonah. Earlier, I said that Jesus was an insider. Well, Jonah was an insider too. He spent 3 days inside the belly of a whale. Here, Jesus is clearly referencing his future death, burial, and resurrection. Jonah warned the people of Nineveh of their pending destruction, and right now, Jesus is warning the people of the entire world. Get ready. When they crossed the lake, the disciples had forgotten to take bread. Verse 6, "Be careful," Jesus said to them. "Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." With this phrase, Jesus is warning them about the influence of the enemy. That influence continues to rage against the knowledge of Christ, even with addictive technology that works like a drug against us to lower our defenses and submit to our sinful desires. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to remind you to stay vigilant, and I want to encourage you to stay in your word and stay prayed up. God bless you.